All right, I wanted to do a quick video here on getting MSI Afterburner set up for on-screen display in games. I'm planning on doing some benchmarking of my new computer. I am uploading right now a video where I talk about my plan of attack for doing that benchmarking. So not the actual benchmarks themselves, because that is going to take some time, but I wanted to throw my plan of attack out there, and hopefully people that are more familiar with benchmarking that come across it might have some tips and tricks for that. So here's MSI Afterburner. You can see I'm running, I believe at this point, the newest drivers for my RTX 2070 from EVGA. It is the 417.71 drivers from NVIDIA. And so I just want to go through, I couldn't figure out for the longest time how to get the on-screen display working, and it's pretty simple. What I was missing, it's kind of dumb, but in the monitoring screen, you have a list of all the things that MSI is capable of looking at, or sensors on your hardware that MSI Afterburner is capable of tapping into. Not everything is checked by default. For some reason, I don't know why frame rate, frame time, these things aren't checked. Uh, I have no idea. They don't take up that much more space in the graphing, so I'm not sure why they're not automatically checked. Um, but you're going to want to make sure all of the things that you care about when you're benchmarking your video card, or really your system in general, using MSI Afterburner, you want to make sure all of these things are checked that you care about. In addition to that, if you are caring about doing benchmarking in game and you want to see the performance in real time, what your machine, what your PC is doing, and how your video card is performing, and such, you want to make sure that over here it should say in OSD, which stands for in on-screen display. And I couldn't figure that out. It's pretty dumb, honestly, but I would just glance at this and it says graph with a check mark. I'm like, okay, properties. I'm like, whatever. But you need to click on this, and then you come down here and make sure it says show in on-screen display. And it's that simple. And yeah, I mean, obviously that was pretty simple, but it was something that I've used MSI Afterburner for quite a while, just to monitor my GPU, especially, and to slightly overclock it on my older GPU, especially. Um, but I didn't know about this little check mark right here. So just tips and tricks, pretty simple one, but there's that. And then as far as the benchmarking, um, someone that's more familiar with this could correct me if they come across this video, but I wasn't able to find a place to start the benchmarking without adding these hotkeys, um, which you then press this key to begin your recording in game, and then you press this other key, whatever your other hotkey is, to stop the benchmarking. Um, you can also change whether or not your on-screen display is off by setting up these hotkeys. I'm kind of surprised there's no like in-game controls that I've come across that you can like bring up MSI Afterburner and just hit and click a checkbox or something, or Riva statistics tuner. Just click a checkbox, turn it on and off. Like, I don't know if there's something like that, but I haven't been able to find it yet. Um, so once you run the benchmark, the way the benchmark runs with MSI Afterburner, at least the way I have it set up right now, it will create a text file. I'm going to pull up the text file to show you what it looks like, or what data you actually get from your benchmarking with MSI Afterburner. Let's see here, MSI Afterburner. So here is the text file that is created. So this is a short benchmark I did in Fortnite, just looking at, I don't know, I was just playing some random games. What I think I've noticed, and I've only just begun doing this benchmarking thing. I've always been really super interested in PCs and performance and building PCs, but I've never really benchmarked a computer that I've built until now. So I finally, this is the first computer where I'd say I mean, it's not top of the line hardware, but like until this computer, I've always gone with like mid to low, I'd say spec hardware. And this time around, I went to mid to high range hardware. So I'm a little more interested, and it's the first time I've had an unlocked processor. So I'm a little bit more interested in actually benchmarking it and seeing what it can do and whether those changes I make are perceivable or perceptible to me while I'm using the computer. So this was a short benchmark I did, or not necessarily short, but I don't know, about a 10-minute benchmark that I ran in Fortnite. And what it gives you is those boxes that you had checked. It gives you that. So I have my average frame rate, the minimum frame rate, which you can see is zero point 0.4. So something I need to be wary of, and I've noticed a couple times when I was trying other tools for benchmarking, is if you're running your benchmark on actual gameplay of you actually playing, which I think is actually pretty useful. Like you don't have necessarily consistency between runs, but you solve that issue by doing multiple runs, and then you can look at the variability, and your average frame rate you get from several runs should be a pretty good average if you do 3 to 5 runs of 5 to 10 minutes each. Like that's a pretty good sample size. And as a person that does research for a living, the larger your sample size, the more close to reality you really are. That's why I sort of have an issue with synthetic benchmarks like Heaven benchmark. I've run that. I don't know what it tells me. Like, I don't know. I mean, I understand it gives me an output of frames per second and a score and this and that, but like, can you actually tell a difference with what you're actually going to be doing? That's what I care about. So the way I'm going to be setting up my benchmarking is I'm actually going to be running through the games I actually play, playing actually competitively as I can for the 5 to 10 minute stretch. And what I think I need to be careful of, I hit zero point 0.4 frames, and I think what happens is if you go between during a loading screen and it goes between actual gameplay and loading screen or the menu screen, I think it probably drops to 0 frames just because it's loading something and there's nothing to render. Uh, and that might be something I'm saying that's pretty obvious and dumb to people that do this regularly, but I don't do it regularly. And maybe you don't either. So this is sort of a learning experience, hopefully, for anyone that comes across this video, learning as I learn how to set up and use MSI Afterburner and other benchmarking tools to determine how well your PC is performing and possibly use it as a troubleshooting. I had my other PC and I started doing some benchmarks and I'm like, there is no way it should be doing this badly. And what I found out, I was running a 6 or 7 year old graphics card. Actually, it's older than that, 8 or 9 year old graphics card with the most recent NVIDIA drivers. It was a GeForce 560 Ti, and I was running very recent drivers from NVIDIA. And what I found out was sometimes running the most recent drivers isn't the best thing because my very old graphics card was getting locked into a low power state. And I wouldn't have really noticed that if I went to benchmark it, and I would if I wasn't using MSI Afterburner and monitoring the core clock of my GPU in real time. And that's how I realized my GPU is getting stuck in a low power state, even when I was trying to play games or benchmarking, like in Heaven benchmark. So it was never ramping up to the speed that it should have been running, and that helped me to determine like and when I'd restart Windows, like it would operate normally for a while and then it just stop. It gets stuck down in this low power state. And so what I realized was that had to been a software thing because when you restart your computer and then all of a sudden it just works for a little while and then it suddenly stops, it's really felt like software, not hardware. So what I did was hopped on some forums, found some other people that had a similar issue, which can be challenging when you're running an 8 year old graphics card. Not a lot of people out there are still caring about that card. But I came across a forum where someone said, try using these drivers, this driver version from 2014. So I did that. I rolled back my driver to a much older version of the driver, and it worked. So some of these things I'm hopefully going to be learning and going through in the next several videos will be helpful to someone that's never done this before. It's going to be a learning experience for me. I'm anxious to see what my computer is capable of doing. So check back, and hopefully we'll be using MSI Afterburner to uh, get some real real life benchmarking in games of actual gameplay. So if you're interested in that, check back, and hopefully I'll have those videos up by the time you check back here, or check back in the next couple days. Subscribe and go from there. So yeah.